October 3rd, 2020, Illusion of Gaia speedrunning was changed forever when a runner named HeroSoft discovered a glitch that let them skip about a third of the game, and it's all thanks to these little guys right here. When I was going through my list of games that I was considering making a video on next, I spent a little bit of time looking into each one, seeing if anything popped out at me right away. Illusion of Gaia speedrunners use spiders to warp to the final boss? Of course, that grabbed my attention, but I had come to a crossroads. Do I skip this and make another Final Fantasy speedrunning video for the money and the fame? Or do I cover a Quintet game I happen to own, but have never touched because my backlog is bigger than Mount Everest? If you read the title, then I probably don't need to tell you what I decided. So let's move on to what really matters. The general length of top speedruns for the game without this glitch hover around the 2-hour mark, with the goal being to collect the mystic statues from different bosses throughout the game, and reach the Tower of Babel to take on Dark Gaia and save the world. If you're familiar with the game, the route isn't too far off of how it would play casually, except for a few minor skips here and there. If you prefer to see one of those runs because you feel like glitches are an abomination, I left a link to the leaderboard in the description for your convenience. Speaking of abominations, if you're not subbed to the channel, then you probably are one. So hit that sub button if you don't want to look like this. As for the rest of us filthy cheaters, let's look at the cause of this mess. At the Mountain Temple, there are these spider enemies that crawl around everywhere and can shoot webs to attack the character. Normally in a speedrun, these would just be avoided because fighting enemies happens to be pretty slow. Speaking of slow, older games like these really don't like it when there's a lot of enemies on screen. This has to deal with the limited amount of memory that's available for sprites being loaded into the game area. Whenever that memory ends up being exceeded, some weird stuff begins to happen, and depending on the game, things get really broken. Let's take Earthbound's any % speedrun as an example. If you get enough sprites on screen near the bottom of Onett, right before the police barriers, the game will have a memory overload. The effects of this can vary from game to game, but most of the time if it's bad enough, it can crash the game. However, in controlled situations, like while doing RNG manipulation to influence enemy spawns, this can be used for some really cool skips. In the any % category, this is used to skip the entirety of Onett without having to go to the arcade, a giant step, or the police station, saving upwards of about 20 minutes. In Illusion of Gaia, the overload causes some more extreme things to happen. If you stack 3 spiders on top of each other, and then have them fire their webs all at the same time, you begin to see some slowdown in the game. If you use the aura barrier ability at the correct time while this is happening, the shields that it spawns add to that sprite counter, and cause an overload that can do something called a wrong warp. In the general sense, normally when you enter a door or teleport somewhere, there's a designated location that you're supposed to end up in. Typically, wrong warping is when you perform certain actions prior to warping to change that outcome. But in this case, things work a little bit differently. When the memory is overloaded, the game warps you based on how you set up the memory overload. HeroSoft discovered this glitch while doing a run of the Illusion of Gaia randomizer about a day before Bowie the Hero and a few other runners verified that it worked on emulator and console. So after all that, how much does it actually cut out of the run? I said about 33% in the title, but it skips 3 major points in the speedrun. These areas require sitting through several different cutscenes and matching text, going through the difficult dungeons of Angkor Wat and the Pyramid, and finally the boss rushes of the Tower of Babel. As with many runs that include major discoveries like this, there ends up being a separation of categories to make sure that people can have competitive leaderboard submissions without doing some of the absurd tricks. With the true any %, Dark Gaia, and all bosses wrong warp categories being the place for major glitches now, there's a gold rush to beat the run as fast as possible in order to get runs in with the faster strategies, having a chance to take the record while things are still fresh. Unfortunately, as with most new category creations, things died down pretty quick due to the tricks being absolutely unforgiving, and not fun for many people trying to have a balance of playing the game fast and enjoying themselves. So the question that remains is, where do the top times sit today? For all of the top times using the wrong warps, every record is held by a top runner, SolarCell007. These times are a 1 hour, 18 minute, and 9 second run for the true any % category that warps to the post credits, and a 1 hour, 20 minute, and 38 second run for the beat Dark Gaia category. For the all bosses wrong warp category, this is a little bit longer with the 2 hour, 2 minute, and 37 second time. This is surprisingly only about 9 minutes shorter than the record that doesn't use the wrong warp, even with the various warps throughout the late game. From someone looking outside in, it doesn't look like that these are too terribly optimized, since not only are there less than 10 runners for each category, but due to the trick being difficult to time, it's easy to lose a run at the very end. Given that the barrier to entry seems to be pretty high, most of the runs currently on the leaderboard are not that recent, with the latest one being performed almost 6 months ago. None of this craziness would be possible without the random find thanks to HeroSoft and the other runners chipping in with their testing. If you've seen a few of my recent speedrunning videos, you'll know how important collaboration is in this hobby to make something like this a reality. Sure, the category might not be too active as of the writing of this video, but it's fascinating to see how far the limits of games like this can be pushed. Stay hydrated, folks, and thanks for watching.